Today's lesson is The Redemption of Jean Valjean, an excerpt from Les Miserables. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to continue talking about the story of Jean Valjean. Again, this is an excerpt from the book Les Miserables, so it's a part of this book. I suspect this is a very long book, and of course, if you find an English translation, it will be easier for you to read. I'm sure there's an edition in Chinese as well. But we're going to be talking about Jean Valjean, and last time we talked about his hard life. Of course, he was born to a peasant family. He lost his parents when he was a child, so he was raised by his older sister. But then her husband died, and he had to support her and her children. He did his best. He tried really hard, but eventually he fell on hard times. He made a fateful choice. He stole a loaf of bread from a bakery. He got caught, and he was thrown in jail, and he was going to be there for 5 years. But then later on, he tried to escape, and they threw him back in jail, and he had to stay there for a total of 19 years, and he never saw his family again. I wonder what happened to them.
Yeah, nothing good, I imagine, being poor and having no money and no form of income, no form of making money, especially with his sister and all these young children. I guess nothing really good happened. Disease, hunger, starvation, sickness, all those sorts of things could have affected them. But yeah, it's very important to know that Jean Valjean was in jail for a very long time, almost 20 years, for a very minor crime, and it really ruined not only his life, but the life of his loved ones, his family. So, of course, when he eventually gets out of jail, he's not feeling real good about the world. So let's pick up from that point in the story when Jean Valjean is basically at his lowest.
Jean Valjean wasn't a bad man when he entered prison. True, he had done something wrong by stealing the bread, but by taking him from his family, society had done something far worse. His time in jail hardened Jean and made him angry, and the unfair treatment he received after leaving prison compounded his feelings of rage and bitterness. He treated the world with the same contempt it had shown him.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 rage， 表示盛怒或是狂怒。例如 Bill felt so much rage when the other boys made fun of him. 其他男孩嘲笑他时 Bill 感到非常愤怒。或是 Cole is trying to find ways to control his rage. Cole 正在试着找方法来控制他的暴怒。继续看到名词 contempt， 指轻蔑或是鄙视。例如 I have nothing but contempt for people who are racist. 我对种族歧视的人只有鄙视。也可以说 The man who yelled at the judge was held in contempt of court. 那名对法官大吼大叫的男子被判藐视法庭。
Okay, so here's the first part of today's lesson. It begins, Jean Valjean wasn't a bad man when he entered prison. I think that much is certain. We know that he was just in a difficult situation, but he had to do something because he and his sister and her children were starving. They went many days without food. He had to do something, so he decided to try to steal some bread from a bakery. So yeah, he's not a bad man when he went into prison, but of course prison can change a man.
I mean, often we use this example of someone stealing food for their hungry family. Is that really a crime? They often use that in sort of philosophy classes and legal discussions to get people to think about ethics and crime. It could be against the law, but is it really wrong if you're doing it in that case? In the same way that killing someone who is trying to attack you, is that murder? Is that really wrong? If you don't defend yourself, you're going to die. If he doesn't steal the food, his family will starve. So this kind of thought exercise is still very pertinent these days. So yes, he did a crime, but was it really that terrible? True, it says he had done something wrong by stealing the bread, but by taking him from his family, society and the justice system had done something far worse, right? They had kind of ruined his family and not directly, but inadvertently killed maybe some of his younger relatives, people who starved because Jean was not there to keep them safe and, to provide food and money for them. His time in jail, it says, hardened Jean and made him angry, and the unfair treatment he received after leaving prison compounded his feelings of rage and bitterness. So he was a guy who was not treated well in his mind, and probably in many of the minds of the readers, didn't treat him fairly, didn't treat him well, didn't treat him certainly with any kindness or compassion or sympathy or understanding. So when he left jail, he had been hardened. When we say hardened, it could be physically hardened, the same way that someone who's pounding metal with a hammer might harden it by folding it. Swords have hardened metal to make them very strong so that they don't break. But generally, when we use this about people, we're talking about being emotionally hardened. If you go off to war as a journalist or obviously as a soldier, you can come back hardened. You're not as kind. You're not as sympathetic. You've seen terrible things and had terrible things done to you, so it changes you as a person. And for other people, you might seem a little more cruel, a little colder. You don't really care about other people. You just care about yourself, because in jail, that's kind of how you have to be. You have to become emotionally hardened. And it made him angry. He was angry at society. I just tried to feed my family and I got thrown in jail for 20 years and now my family's gone and I didn't do anything that bad. Ooh, I hate everyone. I hate society. I hate the law. I hate the judges who did this to me and whatnot. And the unfair treatment he received after leaving prison compounded his feelings of rage and bitterness. Even now, we hear of people, they've served their time, they were sent to jail for 5 years, they stayed there 5 years, they were a good prisoner, they get out, no one will give them a job, no one will rent them an apartment. Oh, you're a criminal. Yeah, but I did my time. I've paid back my debt to society. But society still sees you as a dangerous person or an unwanted person. So this compounds, this reinforces his feelings of rage and bitterness. Rage being deep, powerful anger, and bitterness being an anger at someone for how you've been treated. Resentment is a very similar kind of emotion. Someone treated you badly in the past, and you remember that, and you don't forgive them, and you're still very angry about all the things that have happened to you. And in your heart, you might be bitter, but you also might be very angry with this rage.
Right. Bitterness, of course, is a noun. Bitter is the adjective. So he was bitter and he was very angry. When he left prison, he became very bitter and cynical, perhaps pessimistic, and he wasn't too trusting of other people. He treated the world with the same contempt it had shown him. So that much is expected. If the world treats you that way, what do you expect? He's going to feel the same way. Contempt here just means hatred. He felt that the world hated him. I was just trying to steal a loaf of bread. I was just trying to find food for my family, and I end up having to be in jail for 19 years. So, of course, he was resentful and he hated people. He had this contempt for people. So, yeah, he treated them just like they treated him. Okay, we're at the end of the first part of our lesson. Here comes the second part.
However, everything changed after a second theft. A kind bishop had given Jean shelter, but Jean stole his silverware. When the police caught Jean, the bishop did something remarkable. He claimed the silver was a gift and even added 2 silver candlesticks to Jean's haul. This unexpected act of kindness shocked Jean to his core.
However, everything changed after a second theft. Oh no, he went back to a life of crime. Theft is stealing. If you're a thief, you engage in theft. Stealing, in other words. But everything changed after a second theft. What, did he get his head chopped off or something? That would definitely change his life. Let's see what happened. A kind bishop had given Jean shelter, but Jean stole his silverware. Ooh, okay, so the good and the bad here. He was finally shown some kindness by a bishop. That's a high official in the church. There's bishops, and then there's archbishops, and then even higher would be like cardinals, and then the pope. But basically, if you're a bishop, you're the leader, the religious leader of a sort of area of a city or a countryside or the town. You'll have a large church, probably like a cathedral or something like that under your control. So basically, it's a very powerful church official, and this person had given him shelter, had shown him some Christian kindness, as they are supposed to do. But Jean repaid that kindness by stealing some some valuable silverware from the bishop. Silverware being kitchen items or dining items, things you might use to eat or put on your dining room table, made of silver. So we could think of knives and forks, candlesticks, plates, bowls, cups, things like that. Quite expensive, obviously, and worth reselling if you could sell it, if you could steal it and find someone who will pay you for it. So basically, he stole this stuff to make some money, but he's not a very good thief, as our friend Jean. He got caught.
Exactly, and of course, silverware is also used to refer to utensils, things that we use to eat, knives, forks, spoons, and things like that. Even though nowadays they're mostly made from stainless steel, we still call them silverware or utensils. But yes, he tried to steal that silverware, and the cops caught him. But the bishop did something remarkable. The bishop did something unexpected. He claimed the silver was a gift and even added 2 silver candlesticks to Jean's haul.
Wow.
So the bishop was being nice here. He told the police, hey, he didn't steal that. I actually gave it to him. He was just taking it back home because it was a gift. And I'm even going to give him something else. I'm going to give him some silver candlesticks. A candlestick, of course, is some kind of implement that holds a candle. And, of course, you can light the candle and it can help you see in the dark. And, of course, the bishop added the silver candlesticks to Jean's haul. Here, haul is a noun. It just refers to all the things that he stole. A haul can also be a verb. It refers to pulling something or moving something that is very heavy or difficult to move. I hauled the furniture up the stairs.
Absolutely. But yes, for criminals, it often talks about what they stole, the amount of money they stole. Oh, we made a big haul on that last bank job. We got $200 million. Or whatever, something like that. So the bishop gives these candlesticks probably in front of the police or whoever's there about to arrest him, and they kind of think, oh, you're just helping him, Mr. Bishop. We know he's a criminal. No, I want to... Oh, actually, here, I forgot 2 more candlesticks I promised to give him. And so, of course, as this is happening, Jean's fearing going off to jail for another 20 years, but suddenly this bishop is giving him an excuse, is giving him an alibi, is giving him a way out of this terrible fate. So this unexpected act of kindness shocked Jean to his core as he's waiting for the bishop to say, arrest that man, he stole from me, and lock him up, and I never want to see him again. The bishop's actually helping him avoid going to jail, so that's obviously an unexpected act of kindness, a very kind thing for the bishop to do. So this shocked and surprised Jean to his core. It really, really touched him. It really, really affected him. If something touches you or shocks you or whatever pleases you to your core, it's really on a very deep emotional level. So it wasn't just like, hey, that was a nice thing. It was, oh my God, this guy is helping me. No one's ever helped me before in my life. This is totally changing my outlook on society and people. Maybe there is good in the world, is the kind of thing that Jean is thinking when he's previously given up all hope. So this is kind of showing that maybe he has a chance to change, to go back to being a good person because he realizes there are other good people in the world too. Interesting journey he's on. Let's find out how it ends in the final part of the article.
Having been treated as a criminal for so long, he had begun to believe it was all he could be. But the bishop's mercy forced him to reconsider his life. In that moment, Jean Valjean was reborn. Rather than harbor resentment, he resolved to live honorably, using his strength and intelligence to help others. His transformation from a hardened ex-convict to a man of compassion and sacrifice is one of the most powerful journeys in literature, a journey you can follow in Les Miserables.
第3部分介绍名词 mercy 表示宽恕、慈悲或是怜悯。我们可以说 The man looks up at the king and asked him for mercy. 那个男人仰望着国王，请他大发慈悲。又或者说 The criminal begged the judge to show mercy to him. 那名罪犯哀求法官对他法外开恩。接着看到名词 resentment 意思是怨恨或是愤慨。例如Tom feels resentment towards his boss because he didn't get promoted. Tom 对他的老板感到不满，因为他没有得到升迁。再一个例子 I still have a lot of resentment about the way I was treated by my old boss. 我仍然对前上司对待我的方式有很多怨恨。往下看到动词 resolve 它表示下定决心或是决定。可以说 Albert resolved to start eating healthier. Albert 决定要开始吃得更健康。也可以说 I resolved to practice playing the violin for at least 5 hours each week. 我决定每周至少练习拉小提琴5个小时。最后看到 compassion 这个单字，它是名词，指的是同情或是恻隐之心。举例来说， Jane's compassion for others led her to volunteer at the local homeless shelter. Jane 对他人的同情让她在当地有民收容所担任志工。或者The nurse treated every patient with kindness and compassion. 护理师以亲切和同情心对待每一位病人。
All right, here's the final part of our article for today. It begins by saying, having been treated as a criminal for so long, he had begun to believe it was all he could be. So because he had been treated like a criminal for so many years, he began to believe that this is all I'm going to be. Notice also in this sentence we have the past perfect tense. He had begun to believe because that's something that happened in relation to another incident that happened in the past. So he thought, yep, this is all I'm going to be. I'm going to be good for nothing. I'm just a criminal. I have no value. I couldn't take care of my sister's family. I deserve everything I get.
Of course, yes, how that's natural that he would be thinking that way. But the bishop's mercy forced him to reconsider his life. This is how he has been shocked to his core. The bishop's mercy, kindness. Mercy is when you do something nice for someone even when you don't have to, or even when you could be angry and do something kind of mean to get that person back, you decide not to, and not only do you not get revenge, you do something nice for them as well. So think of the king or the queen when they bring the person who tried to steal from them or maybe even tried to murder the king. The king says, no, I understand this guy was misguided, he had wrong ideas in his head, or I just want to show kindness. I am going to show mercy to this person. I could punish them, but I'm choosing not to. In fact, give that man some money, give him a job. I think that he can change his life and become a good, helpful part of society or something like that when I don't have to. So showing mercy in that way is a very kind act of grace. In that moment, Jean Valjean was reborn. So this was the new Jean Valjean, the one who realizes the world isn't totally a cruel, nasty place, and he doesn't have to be a cruel, nasty person either to survive. Rather than harbor resentment, he resolved to live honorably, using his strength and intelligence to help others.
He was going to pass on the favor from the bishop. He was going to help other people as a result of that. So again, he was reborn. He was redeemed. And he did not have that resentment anymore. He resolved this. He promised. That's what to resolve means. You kind of promise this to yourself. You make this decision. I'm resolved to go to university in Europe, for example. That's my plan or something. That's my big change in my life. So he's going to live honorably. He's going to be honest. He's going to be nice to people. And he's not going to be a criminal anymore. He is going to use his strength and his smarts or his brain to help other people. And this, of course, is a big change in his life.
Yeah, he doesn't want to harbor or hold on to. When you harbor something as a verb here, we're talking about holding on to something, especially emotionally. A harbor can be a place where boats tie up and park, a nice safe place where boats can find safety from storms, but it also means kind of to hold things. When you harbor resentment, you're holding on to that anger. Maybe someone you fought with back in high school and they used to tease you, and then you see them 20 years later and you're like, oh, I still don't like that guy, even though they try to be nice to you. You're holding on to that anger. You're harboring that resentment. So he decides not to do that. He will live honorably. He will be a kind person, even if society wasn't kind to him. He will try to be better than that. He will help others. His transformation from a hardened ex-convict to a man of compassion and sacrifice is one of the most powerful journeys in literature, a journey you can follow in Les Miserables. So there you go. Yeah, very interesting story. His transformation, his change after many experiences and a lot of difficult times. So transformation is kind of like an evolution. It changes over time because of different factors and different experiences. So he's changed from a hardened ex-convict, a hardened former prisoner, right, who got out of jail and is angry at the whole world. And so he changed from that to a man of compassion, a man of kindness, a man man of mercy, a man of grace, a man who will forgive people for doing awful things to him, and he will sacrifice, he will give up for other people. So maybe when the bishop was nice to him, Jean Valjean then went on to soon be kind to another person who was desperate like he had been before. So this is a very powerful journey in literature, not a journey of miles or kilometers, but a journey of the heart, a journey of the emotions, a journey of the mind, a change, how a person can change from the beginning of the story to the end. And you can follow this journey, follow the story of Jean Valjean in Les Miserables. And I would say I am now 10% more likely to read this book.
As I think our students are. They probably
story.
are very interested in reading this book as well. But right now we're going to hear from Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第3部分有一句提到，他从一个铁石心肠的前科犯转变为一个富有同情心和奉献精神的人。那文中用到 ex-convict 来表达前科犯，那这个字首 ex 它就是表达曾经的或是前任的。 convict 它当名词表示服刑中的囚犯，它当动词是念作 convict 来表达给什么定罪。那这边我们来学习它的字首字根，看到 vict 或是 vince 这一类字根，它有攻击或是战胜的意思。在 convict 这个字当中，字首 con 表示强调，它有强调语义。那么字根 vict 表示战胜。那我们试着联想，邪不胜正，当正义的一方战胜了邪恶，就可以把坏人定罪。用这个方式去联想到 convict， 它可以表达宣判什么有罪，给什么定罪。那它当名词念作 convict， 就可以表达服刑中的囚犯或者是已决犯。好，那顺便补充2个有这一类字根的单字。第一个是 victor， 字根 vict 这部分表示战胜， or 是名词字尾，可以用来表达从事什么的人，合在一起 victor 就表示胜利者、赢家。第二个补充的是 invincible， 字首 in 它表示不或否定， vinc 这部分它是来自字根 vince， 它表示战胜， ible 就跟 able 一样，表达可怎么样的，能怎么样的，合在一起 invincible 就可以表达不可战胜的，也就是说无敌的，所向无敌的。好，另外文中它用到名词 compassion 来表达同情心，我们也来学习它的字首字根，看到 path 或是 pat或是 pass 这一类字根，它表示 feel 或是 suffer， 也就是感受、遭受或是受苦的意思。在 compassion 这个字当中，它的字首 com 表示 with 或是 together， 那么字根 pass 它带有 suffer 的语义，所以我们字面看就会有那种一起受苦、一起承受的意思，应该可以联想到 compassion 它是指同情、恻隐之心。好，顺便补充2个这一类字根的单字。第一个是 empathy， 它的字首 em 表示进入，字根 path 表示感觉， y 是名词字尾。当我们设身处地把自己放进别人的处境当中，感受别人内心的感觉，这样应该可以联想到 empathy 它有同理心、同感或是共鸣的意思。第二个补充的是 apathy， 它的字首 a 表示缺乏， path 表示感觉， y 是名词字尾，那缺乏感觉应该很容易联想到 apathy 它有冷淡、冷漠的意思。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Compound. By lying about his mistake, Randall only compounded the trouble he was already in. Rage. Unable to control her rage, Savannah banged the table with her fist. Contempt. The mayor spoke with clear contempt for those who refused to help during the crisis. Haul. The police recovered a haul of stolen jewelry from the suspect's house. Mercy. Before the judge decided on a sentence, the prisoner was given the opportunity to beg for mercy. Resolve. To improve his health, Raymond resolved to exercise at least 3 times a week. Honorably. Captain Marsh served honorably in his country's navy for over 20 years. Compassion. In her work as a nurse, April treats every patient with kindness and compassion.
Discussion Starter starts now!
It's time now for our discussion starter for today, and the question is, what is another story in which a character grows and finds inspiration through hardship?
I'd say another classic one of literature is in Oliver Twist. The main character undergoes a significant transformation because, of course, he is born poor, he is raised in the workhouse, and by the end of the story, he finds out that he is actually the lost... Oh, I don't want to give away too many spoilers. He finds out that he has a much more interesting past than you thought before. I think actually it was Pride and Prejudice, some of the Jane Austen books, were some of the first books to actually have characters going through a transformation through the story. So there are many good examples of this.
Yeah, that's a major device that is used in fiction. People turn over a new leaf or whatever. And speaking of Dickens, I'm thinking of A Christmas Carol. I don't think Ebenezer Scrooge was all that desperately poor. Of course, he was rich. He had a lot of money, but he was an old miser. And eventually he started to feel sympathy for Bob Cratchit and other people around him.
Tiny Tim.
Yeah, Tiny Tim. So, of course, he went through a major change and became a really great guy after that.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.